Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the UnLearnT podcast. This is the second act where we reflect on where we've been so that we can redefine and rewrite what's next. I'm your host, Jaquita Ross, and today I have somebody so special with me today. I'm absolutely excited to introduce you guys to her, okay? So, listen, today we're diving into the power of reinvention with someone who has truly lived it. After 32 years in higher education, including more than a decade as vice president, where I had the pleasure of being mentored by her. Dr. Matteel Knowles walked away to build a new life centered on purpose, freedom, and transformation. She's now a motivational speaker, transformation coach, and author of It's Your Time to Soar and Getting Out of Your Own Way with a new online course on the way. Dr. Knowles is living proof that the second act isn't a comeback, it's an elevation. Friends, welcome to the second act. One of my most cherished mentors, Dr. Matteel Knowles. Hi, Dr. Knowles.
Hey, Jaquita.
Yay! Listen, you guys, when I was but a young girl in the world of academia and student life and student services, Dr. Knowles scooped me up and coached me to greatness. And I always, anytime I'm speaking in front of an audience, especially in front of an audience of young adults, I think of all of the things that she poured into me, the ways that she helped me to realize that there was so much more beyond where I was. And she helped me, like her new book says, to get out of my own way and to go pursue those great things. Dr. Knowles, I'm so excited.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes. Okay. So you are someone who 32 years in a space in higher education, right? But I love the story of your trajectory. And so I would love for you to introduce to the audience Dr. Knowles, the former higher ed professional, and talk about kind of where you began in that first act and how you navigated through those different seasons.
Well, thank you, Jaquita. And I love this idea of our life being divided into acts and having an intermission and so forth. I often talk about our lives being like a book that has chapters
Yeah.
that we're moving
Yeah.
through with beginning, middle, some plot twists. And it's the same when you think about theater and acts. And so, yeah, so when I think about how it all started, I'm going to go way back for a minute. I won't stay there
Let's go
long.
way back. Let's
We'll
go
go
way
way
back.
back. So
Yeah.
when I was a teenager, when I was approaching that age of thinking about where I'm going to go to college and everything, that was a time in my life when I would come home and Oprah was on. And I was super inspired by what she was doing, how she was showing up in the world, using her life. And so as a writer, and I already was doing some speaking and so forth back then, but I really wanted to go into journalism or mass communications.
Oh,
And the adults in my life who loved me and were well meaning didn't think that would be a great career. And so I shifted. I pivoted early on, but I don't know if that was a healthy pivot because I pivoted away from my basic instinct and
oh,
and early on. And so I started down a road that was not, even though it was lower risk, it was not as authentic as
wow.
my life became later. And so I went to, I got accepted. This could be a whole book. I got accepted into Temple
New book on the
University.
way.
I know. And honest, if I'm super honest, I let fear prevent me from going away to Temple University in Philadelphia. And I know everything happens as it's supposed to, as we go through our acts of
Yeah.
our lives. But I started going to community college where I
Mm,
lived, and then eventually started working full time. I was really, really good at office work. And I had taken classes in, typing and word processing and so forth. And so I also pivoted. So I became someone who was working full time in nice, decent, high level office positions and going to school part time. And I did that for many, many years. and people assumed I had a degree. So I found myself always
Hmm.
explaining that I didn't have one yet because I was always pursuing it. I was one of those people with like 120 credit hours and no earned credential. I don't
So
recommend that,
so
but that
on the brink of it, but trying to figure out how to push past.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I had not yet become a finisher.
Yeah.
And when it
Ooh.
comes to pursuing my goals. And so fast forward, I've worked at law firms, uh, big insurance companies, so on and so forth. But when I landed in higher ed, I worked for a woman who we lost about 3 years ago, Joe Grooms. She hired me to be the executive assistant to her. She was a vice president for student affairs, and everyone lovingly called her Mama Joe because she was a mentor. And she saw something in me that I did not see in myself yet.
Oh, I
And that's
love
an
it.
important sort of like pin because that is such a theme that shows up. People show up.
Yeah.
People show up as you mentioned mentors. You're coachable. You're an example of someone who's coachable. I too was coachable. And
Yeah.
so she basically laid down the law and was like, you're gonna go back to college and you're gonna finish. And it didn't seem like a it didn't seem like a suggestion. And so
It was like a
I did
command. I would like to
exactly.
say I got some of those from you too.
Yes,
I got
ma'am.
some of those that didn't seem like a suggestion,
Yes,
right?
ma'am. And it's important, when God puts those people in our lives that we listen to them and that
Yeah.
we just take the courageous steps, just that one extra ounce of courage to move forward. And so um I had many serendipitous things that happened, but eventually I kept moving up in higher ed. I did 4 years in Florida and 28 in South Carolina. But along the way, I kept moving up, and eventually I became a vice president. I became, I was in the same role of the person who mentored me
Yeah.
eventually. And so that was life changing. That was a major pivot. I think that probably describes my first act because I had about 13 years of working as an executive assistant, as a legal assistant, and then eventually my whole personality, my whole brand, the whole way I saw myself shifted into being an executive level officer at a college.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's so interesting. I love how you said that there was this original intent of the direction of your life in this journalism, in this mass communication area, right? And that was, I'm guessing, an area of giftedness that you even in some way recognized in yourself. But in the pivot, in one of your first pivots, it was go a safer route. Go a route where there's a little bit more confidence that you'll be able to make a living and have kind of that 9 to 5 world,
mhm.
where we can imagine you there. And but I think it's so interesting though that you were good at what you weren't natural at. Right,
Yeah,
like it wasn't your first inclination, but you were still good at something
yes.
that you could build, but it's like you were carrying kind of the career and the passion. Like, I'm sure it never left. And so I'm wondering, as you were kind of navigating going up the ranks of, I'm naturally just a good administrator. I went back
Mhm,
to college, I got the credentials, I can
mhm.
continue growing as an administrator, but there's still something I'm carrying with me that I haven't been able to express. And I've been there. Right?
Mhm.
I've been in positions where I was good at my job, but there's this thing sitting on the inside of me that I feel like I can't express. How did you find outlets in the midst of a growing career to still express this passion?
So, back when I was still in my first act, I was always plugged into things like community theater. And that's when I was in Jacksonville, Florida. I had many roles on stage, behind stage, backstage. And also, then later I got involved. I was always a writer,
Yeah.
also. And but I never really shared it with the world. And so I got very involved in spoken word poetry. I did open mic night. Yeah, I don't think you did. I don't think I've talked about
What?
that. Yeah. And So I did always stay tapped into that side of me. I have pictures of myself as a toddler, and I'm in the position of a speaker and
Yeah.
and a leader. And but yeah, so and there does when so I'm really saying this especially to this middle adult part of your audience. I know that's not all of your audience,
It's a
but
good bit of us.
okay, so you do
Yeah.
have to cultivate this ability and willingness to really notice what's going on with you. So some you made a good point. I was in positions that weren't necessarily my didn't necessarily align with my purpose.
Mhm.
I did develop a lot of foundational skills and comfort in rooms where I later needed to be,
Yeah.
but you have to be able to pay attention to that nagging feeling that something's not quite right.
Mm.
Because I think we all get that feeling and we learn to push it down because like you said, we're being practical, we're being safe, we're staying in the box that has the lines that were drawn for us, that
Yeah.
makes other people comfortable and
Yeah.
make them not worry about us. And but then once you have that awareness, how long do you carry that dis-ease
Mm.
in your body and your spirit before you take action to do something different?
Yeah.
And
I
yeah.
No, I think it's interesting because as I'm hearing your story, some of which I knew, some of which apparently I didn't know, but as I'm hearing your story, I'm thinking about kind of moments where I knew it was time to transition. Right.
Mhm.
And I'll
Mhm.
tell you, I think I told you, Dr. Knowles and I worked at a wonderful community college together,
Mhm.
where she was my boss's boss, but that's okay. I still found my way to her, and that's all that
Yes.
matters.
Yep.
But I when I knew that it was time for me to leave that place, and I loved that place, and I
Mhm.
loved that role. I love the students that I was able to interact with. I love the community that was there. The people that I worked with. I still to this day have a really deep love for that place. But
Mhm.
I knew that it was time for me to move forward into my next thing. And so I applied then for the college that I work at now,
Mhm.
and the day that I got the call, that I got the job, I was actually at work and I was sitting in my office and I went downstairs because I didn't want anybody to hear me. I went downstairs and I was outside and I was like, Dr. Knowles, I went back upstairs. The lights were off in my office and they would not turn back on. We kept flicking them. We kept trying to, they were motion sensors. So everybody was in there waving their hands. The lights would not turn back on. And I knew that I had fulfilled a season in that place.
That is so symbolic.
I know. But you get to these moments
You do.
where yeah, you love it and you love the impact. You love the community that you built there. But it's time to move to the next thing. The
Mm.
lights turned off.
Mhm.
What do you do when you're in that moment and you're feeling that sense of dis-ease and you know that you have to make a courageous move? How do you kind of navigate those moments? Because I was holding two realities. I was holding loving where I was and
Mhm.
knowing that I had to move forward.
So you do have to pay attention to those moments, and that was a powerful symbolic moment that you just described. I have several as well. I'll share one quickly, and I'll talk to you about the how
Of
to answer
course.
your question. So when I was first moving into my first vice presidency, I had the honor of serving as vice president at two different community colleges, and when I first got the first opportunity, even going through the process of being called in for the interview, I won't tell the longer version of it, but I kept trying to run from it. I kept trying to run from it. I just did little things to push it away, and it everything kept pulling me toward it. I was trying to repel it, but everything kept attracting me toward the position. And so once I left the interview, when you're applying as a vice president, you have like a 1 or 2 full day interview process. And when I was back in the car heading back home, I called my mother and I told her the history of that first institution, and it tied back to a history, that college has a history of being a day school for children of freed slaves. And
Whoa.
hmm
Wow.
and when I said the name of it, the original name of it, she kept repeating it a couple times, and it turned out that my grandmother and some of her sisters attended that school and played
Oh my
basketball
gosh.
there.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So I was supposed, that gave
You're
me the
supposed
most
to be there.
intensive sense of purpose. Now here I am going in as a vice president. And
Yeah.
so I was supposed to do that. And so, but noticing that kind of, noticing those moments doesn't mean it's not scary, or maybe a stronger word would be terrifying at times. And so this is where, and you've heard me talk about my 5-step transformation model. The
Mm-hmm.
first one is mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
so, there's many ways to work on your mindset and do your work. Surround yourself with people who are not going to be encouraging you to not take those leaps and courageous bounds and so forth. But honestly, it comes down to doing it with your legs shaking. Yes, you have to get your mindset right. And we could do a whole session on that, but you have to take action. And that's why I talk about caterpillars and butterflies so much, because butterflies are down on the ground, excuse me, caterpillars are down on the ground with other caterpillars, walking
Mm-hmm.
around, eating, having a good old time. Nothing wrong
Yeah.
with it, but that's not what they're supposed to be. You weren't
Wow.
supposed to
Ooh.
stay where you
You're
were.
not everything you're supposed to be yet.
Right. You were
Yeah.
never meant to remain a caterpillar.
Yeah.
But
Ooh.
if you think about it, a caterpillar really doesn't even know what a butterfly is,
Wow.
but it feels this pull towards something higher. It feels this
Wow.
pull towards something that's more purposeful, that will literally allow it to soar. Like, what's flying, when you're a
Yeah.
caterpillar. So it's really about taking that step. And again, quickly to talk back on the caterpillar transformation, it steps onto a branch, it steps onto something. And so that's support. So we have to remember
Wow.
that even when things are scary, we're never going to have to do it alone.
Yeah.
All the things we've accomplished in our life and will accomplish, we don't do it alone. Nothing I've
Yeah.
achieved has been alone. It's been mentors, it's been books sometimes, it's been listening to Joyce Meyer back in the day before I'd go to work.
We love
Um,
Joyce.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so you have to do it scared. You have to pay attention to that pull and know that it's real, and not allow doubt and fear to
Yeah.
literally cripple you. Because a lot of people, the majority of people, I have to look up the latest statistics, don't take the step.
Wow. I'm thinking about one thing I feel like I talk about constantly is the power of mentorship. And a lot of young adults and young people I know really struggle with identifying mentors. I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I first started in my role, I was director of campus life for about 2.5 years. When I first started in that role, I saw you at an event, and
I
I said to
remember,
myself, "She's going to be my mentor."
but I
I
remember you stepped up though. I can picture where you saw me. We were like in a vestibule area, like in a hallway or something.
mm-hmm,
And it's fun. I didn't know you were deciding I was going to be your mentor, but you stood out because you were so forthcoming. You introduced
mm-hmm,
yourself, or you either introduced yourself or you reminded me where I'd met you before. It
mm-hmm.
was, but you spoke up.
Yeah.
And that is something that I actually, in my new book plug,
New book club.
in my new book, Getting Out of Your Own Way, I have a section in there about mentorship, seeking mentors and sponsorships and so forth, because there's a difference between a mentor and a sponsor.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes you have to be proactive. Sometimes it's going to be someone you know well. Sometimes it won't be. It might not be someone who looks like you. It might not be the same race. It might not be the same gender. If you
Yeah.
feel led to connect with this person in a way that's tied to your purpose, then it's up to you to do that.
Yeah.
And no one is going to be insulted or put off by your reaching out to them and requesting some time and space. Ask
Yeah.
them to make space for you, to help them grow. Most people are honored and flattered and want to give back. And another piece of this, also in the book, is follow up. It's one thing to reach out to someone, it's another thing to follow up. And a lot of people, people say, yes, I'll help you, or they get a business card in an event, and then it stops there. So it's a full circle relationship. And but you have
Oh
to
no,
be
I was getting on the calendar. I was like,
yeah,
put
you
me
were.
on the calendar.
Yep. You had to be
Oh,
because uh executives are busy,
yeah.
but they are willing to make the time, but you have to sometimes keep yourself front burner in their lives, or you have to, realize that they may not be able to give you a half a day, you know,
Yeah.
but they might be able to give you 30 minutes.
No, and I remember when I was able to get on the schedule because I would like call your admin and be like,
Mhm.
"Hey, how do I get on the schedule?" And she would be like, "We
Mhm.
can't get you in for a month," and she has an hour right
Right.
here. And I was like, "I don't care what I have going on. I'm going to make that hour work." But I
Yes.
always try to be intentional about how I spent your time,
Mhm.
and making sure that I was showing up prepared and making sure that I did what you told me to do.
Mhm.
When you told me to make a vision board, I made a vision board. When you told me
Mhm.
to read something, I read it. And I think more than anything, I look back at that time and I see the fruit of what was invested in me in those days. I see the fruit of it now. Like it's come to pass. Like we talked about what my new house would look like one day.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then like 4 years later, it came to pass.
Yes.
Like we talked about traveling and speaking and then the podcast came, and so the things that you have to see it as sowing good seed. Not
Yes.
only them sowing good seed into you, but you have to be willing to water your own seed sometimes.
Yes.
You have to be willing to
Absolutely.
get in the spaces where what they told me, I'm going to nurture it so that
Yeah.
it grows.
Absolutely. You are an example of someone who's coachable. I coach. I have coached and still coach a lot of people. Not everybody's coachable. Not everybody's coachable. And it it's usually fear. Some
Yeah.
some people who I coach, we have to stay in the mindset part of the transformation model for a very long time. And that's okay. I don't mind doing that because it makes no sense to push them forward if they're not ready. And
Yeah.
not ready usually looks like mentally,
Yeah.
because there's also a stick with itness that's going to come when you're journeying toward any goal, especially one that terrifies you. And if you don't have your strong mindset and your strong reasons for even heading in that direction, answering
Mhm.
that pull, answering that call, it's going to make it easy for you to give up.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting because we're talking about first acts and you as this transformation coach, and guys, her when I tell you her signature is the butterfly, the way that Dr. Knowles can teach about a butterfly and carry you through the stages of a butterfly, it's masterful. And I'm just going to do a quick plug. If you want to hear more about it, go find her on YouTube. She has a TED Talk, okay, and it's absolutely fabulous. But I think it's so interesting that as a transformation coach, you're often helping people through their first act, right? As you're like helping them to navigate through those stages. And as you helped me, I was in my first act.
Mm-hmm.
I just started transitioning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because there's many acts, and you can look back on your life now and say, okay, this part of my career was kind of, I can clump it all together now. But as you were going through it, there were many transitions. There were
Absolutely.
there were many pivots. And I think, when I think back to some of the things besides really good mentorship that helped me to transition from kind of one stage to another and change mindsets, I think about some of the books that I read. And one of the books that had just a really I just didn't see it coming impact was Stephen Covey when he talked about the seven habits of highly
Mm-hmm.
successful people.
Mm-hmm.
That hit me so hard because
Great
I
book.
yeah, I didn't know that I needed that level of reflection. what are some things that, as you have been coaching people through their first act, because I believe this is part of how you've been moving forward in your second act and in all of the things that you're doing now. What are some of the things that you have found when you talk about mindset? What are some things that you have noticed naturally people need to reflect on in order to kind of rewrite and redefine what's next?
So when coaching people and when I'm in the mindset stage with people, and you revisit mindset without throughout your journey toward any goal,
Hmm.
but you do have to have this foundational grasp on your mindset before you can really take action and really start heading toward it. I think that, and I mentioned fear.
Hmm.
Uh, so having people identify their fears when I coach people one on one, it's not counseling, but we do go deep, and I give people exercises to help them identify their fears, admit their fears, even to themselves,
Yeah.
and so increase their awareness that they're
Mhm.
terrified and try to challenge them to and teach them how to push past the fears. But the other thing beyond fear, it's negativity.
Wow.
And there is, negative mindset, positive mindset. You can Google that and see the the comparison, the contrast between the two. I recently attended a conference, and they passed out a rubber band to each of us so that we could catch ourselves every time we had a negative thought,
Wow.
because we tend to have thousands of negative thoughts throughout any day, and they
Wow.
can weigh down the positive thoughts that are there within you and are sometimes coming from others and cause you to reject them. Most of the people who are truly not coachable are people who are negative about almost everything. And that negative lens is a negative lens combined with fear also is it's a showstopper.
Yeah.
And so I have tools that I use, and sometimes I refer people to books, but I have tools that I use to help people work through their fears and work through their negativity. And I literally sometimes have to stop people mid sentence and say, "Did you hear how you just said that?" And
Yeah.
have them reframe it. And
Yeah.
when you're not used to that, and sometimes that comes from family background,
Wow.
seeing the
Yeah.
glass half full, like all the time with everything, it's not a muscle if it's not a muscle you've used, you have to train it just like any other muscle in our body. But if you're negative about everything, you're not going to be able to imagine it happening, whatever the it is for
Yeah.
you. You're any, as you know, as someone who does charge toward goals and achieve them and pivot, you're going to have roadblocks. You're going to have
Yeah.
hiccups. Sometimes you're going to have a major setback. And if you're negative and trapped in fear, you're going to let those things stop you. And what you really have to do, and I try to help people learn how to do this, you have to stay in position. You have to
Mm.
stay, biblically, you have to stay on the wall. You have to
Stay on the
in,
wall.
stay on the wall.
Yes.
Have to stay in position. You have to trust that this thing that you're going toward is what you're supposed to be doing, even if you don't know how yet.
Mm.
And you have, because as you know, sometimes your next pivot might be right around the corner, but
Yeah.
you jumped off.
Ooh. Ooh, you abandoned it.
You abandoned it.
You abandoned it. And I think a lot of times we don't realize when we left it. We don't realize when we left it. And there are things that we're still hoping for, but you don't realize that you got off course.
Exactly. And you can
And
get back on course.
yeah, but that's the way to the thing. It is that, you might do a huge turn and go up a street, but you have to find your way back
Exactly.
to your intended path.
Absolutely. And speaking of path, you mentioned my TED talk, which it's almost been 10 years since I did that. But I talk a little bit about this because it's about the power of not setting goals. And the reason I phrase it that way and still talk about it that way is because another way to be negative and another way to hold on to fear is to be rigid. And so if you are
Mm,
so rigid that you only see this one way that your life can go, you're going to miss signs along the way. The road might be curvy, you know, you might meet some people along the way that take you. It doesn't, because if you're on the path and you make a slight right, it doesn't mean you're not still headed in the right direction. It just means that there's something else that you're supposed to do along the way, but it might expose you to something for your life that you never even knew existed.
wow.
And so being rigid is another mindset thing that can hold people back. And that rigidity can land you in a career that you never intended to be in.
It can also prevent you from moving forward in the things that you're supposed to be in. Like
Absolutely.
we keep ourselves from where we're supposed to be because
Hmm.
we want control. I think being rigid a lot of times is about maintaining control. Like I want the things that I can understand and that I can keep kind of in the box. And so that keeps you stuck a lot of times. And I can only talk about it because I've been there.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
And that's all just tied to fear.
Yeah.
Wanting to control is the opposite of just free falling and trusting and moving forward.
Wow. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you about the free fall. Okay. Let me tell you about the free fall. Let me
Free
tell
fall's
you
no joke.
the free fall is no joke. When
No.
I was talking, I was actually mentoring somebody just yesterday, and I was telling her, hope she's watching, but I was telling her, when we talk about faith, we act as if you take one step, if you take a step forward, you'll get more understanding and clarity, but you don't get it until you take the step. And a lot of times we are stuck and we are afraid of what we don't know. And you
Mhm.
will continue to not know and not have any understanding about where God is leading you if you don't take the step. Because it's not that God wants to withhold understanding and knowledge and information and revelation from us. We have to walk with Him. And so, if you take the step and walk with Him, then you can walk into revelation. You can walk into understanding. You can
Absolutely.
walk, but you have to make the move. And
Absolutely.
oftentimes, it's Peter stepping out of the boat that was the hard part.
Right.
It is the looking at the water and seeing the water, but seeing
Hmm.
Jesus and
Hmm.
saying, "Okay, I guess I'll step out here. I guess I'll step out here anyway." But
Right.
that's what I love about your story because as you are just thinking through somebody who started as an administrative assistant, right?
Hmm.
Who started working and this we can talk about the importance of service. We can talk about
Hmm.
the importance of
Hmm.
humility right here, right?
Hmm.
Right? You started by working for what you would become. You served
Yeah.
it before you became it.
Yes. I
Right.
never thought about it
Yes.
like that. I like that.
Yes.
Thank you,
You did that. That's what you did. Right. And you
Dequita. Yes.
served your way up.
Wow. Yes.
Like you found a purpose in helping and not in just leading. And when we think about the development of a leader, when I think about your first act and how you navigated through it, I mean, I think it's only appropriate that like your signature theme is transformation
Hmm.
because you were literally in a process of becoming. Right. And so, like, you were serving your way, but as you were serving, you were becoming, and it becomes this two-edged iron sharpening iron moment
Hmm.
where as I'm serving and as I'm giving, I'm also being elevated and sharpened for what I'm going to become and what I will essentially have to do. And so I'm really interested in knowing what was the process of becoming like what were the things that you had to sacrifice and what were some of the things that you gained through your becoming.
Wow. So, and I talk about a lot of these in my first book, It's Your Time to Soar.
Please.
because it's the main areas. Yes, thank you. Shameless book plug.
Say it.
But I really do talk about the 5 transformation steps, and because I talk about my life, and I
Mhm.
give examples from different categories of my life: career, weight loss journey, uh, marriage and divorce, and education, and some other things. And I also give examples of other people. And wow, the moving through. If I had to think of one overarching theme that that runs through all of my different transformations, is this: I had to give up being understood. Hmm.
You had to give it up?
Because, even, think about it. I was a caterpillar, and I was a caterpillar
Yeah.
in all those different categories I just described. And I
Mhm.
was still around I mean, I have friends who were still caterpillars. And so, even let's take the quick career example. I was, and I still am, I do love serving. And
Yeah.
so when I was quote unquote moving up, I was volunteering for all sorts of things on campus. I was stepping
Mm.
in to be an interim, this, that, or the other. I never honestly was ever doing it because, oh, this will go to my resume. I
Yeah.
want to be, I wasn't. It was a natural, organic part of the way I show up.
Yeah.
But other people were, you gonna let them use you like that? They're taking advantage of you. And I can't, if that was me, a lot of that. And so,
Mm.
being misunderstood, being people making the assumption that I was doing things to kiss up or to move up, and learning to not worry about that.
Yeah.
And that was a part of my growth. Even when I went through a divorce, I'm in my second marriage now. We've been married 6 years, just had an anniversary.
Hey,
Yay.
Mr. Knowles, happy
Yes,
anniversary.
thank you. And but in my first marriage, when I sought the divorce, and was going through that process, I had someone who was a friend of ours who was like, "But that is your husband." And I mean, they really, they didn't know everything.
Yeah.
They didn't know everything, and so again, misunderstood, but needed to stay in position for how what I felt was the right trajectory for my life. And and seeking help, continuously having mentors and people like we talked about, and just being willing to take steps, even though I didn't necessarily see what others saw. I had opportunities that fell into my lap. I know that was God that put me in situations that felt a little premature, like in that way.
Ooh.
Who, me? You know.
Yeah.
And so, but doing it anyhow, and doing it unapologetically, and but always serving. And as I moved up, it gave me an opportunity to serve more students, because as you get in bigger and higher ed, as you get into bigger and higher roles, you have less regular contact with students, but the things you do impact more students. And then also, to this day, I still thoroughly enjoy mentoring people who are working in higher ed, trying to figure out how to navigate this thing, how to move up. When do I go back and get a PhD? And when do I do that? And what does that look like? I see your face.
I want to let y'all know, for all of y'all, because people who follow the UnLearnT podcast know they followed my struggle through the PhD, and I actually love research, and I love the program I'm in. But let me tell you about this working full time and getting this PhD life. I want
It
y'all to
ain't
thank
pretty.
Dr. Knowles. Okay, because the day before the application was due, I talked to her because I told her, I don't think I'm gonna do it. And she was, remember, I told you sometimes it's not a suggestion, it's a
Exactly.
command. It was a
Exactly.
command.
Exactly. Yeah, doing things like that. I've When I was working full time, I started the business that I'm doing full time now, but I had to dabble. I just attended a conference. They call it. I had to flirt with. I was flirting with my business because I
Mm,
didn't have the bandwidth and the capacity to do what I'm able to do
yeah.
full time. Another thing I gave up, and this was also consistent through everything. And talking about grad school made me think about it. You give up a lot of social life. And again, people don't always understand that. You don't have time to go to every cookout. You don't have time to
Cookout.
lay across the bed and talk to a friend for a couple of hours. You just literally don't have the time. And so one thing you learn, and we've all heard about, people being in our lives for a season,
Yeah.
that really gets put to the test when you are striving
Ooh,
toward a big pivot, toward
your
your
second
next
act.
thing, your
Yeah.
next act, because
Yeah.
you've got to let some people fall off.
Ooh. And so I'm going back. My mind went back to where you talked about how that caterpillar goes up onto a branch and it
Mm-hmm.
has to have support in the midst of its transition. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
really seeing kind of this cocoon
Mm-hmm.
metaphor kind of being an intermission, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I,
Mm-hmm.
I had my first act as a caterpillar. Now I'm going backstage for a little bit.
Mm.
Right. I'm getting away from the crowd. I'm getting away from the way that everybody knew me. And
Yes.
I'm coming into a place within myself where I'm reflecting and I'm also being built for where I have to go. Right. Because when we think about intermissions, we're going backstage, we're changing clothes, we're preparing for what the
Mm-hmm.
next scene is going to bring to us, for
Mm-hmm.
what the next act will reveal. And I'm thinking about that caterpillar being on that branch and thinking through, who's going to be with you afterwards if they were able to support you in your intermission.
Yes.
If you could lean on them, or if they could, if not, my friends don't understand everything about where I am right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that I can put some weight on them while I'm in the midst of my transition. But I have also had people that I've had to recognize, maybe you're a friend but not a close one. Or
Right.
maybe I can't rest on you in my cocoon season.
Right.
Maybe this isn't a place where I can be supported. Oh, Dr. Knowles, I told y'all, you give her a butterfly metaphor, and now my mind is spinning.
Oh yeah, there's more. There's more. So this might be a good time for me to talk about this cocoon, this intermission. I love
Yeah.
the way you intersected those because this is, and I have studied. I don't always have the scientific terms front of my brain,
It's
but
okay.
I have studied. I've learned more about caterpillars and butterflies than I ever thought I would. But one thing that has stood out is this chrysalis stage, which is the
Yeah.
cocoon stage. And you mentioned climbing, you mentioned support. That is the most vulnerable stage in the
Wow.
transformation of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. And if you
Wow.
if you listen, if you think about this in terms of our life, our uh, acts, and we have all these scenes within an act,
Mm-hmm.
and then the intermission. When you're striving toward a goal, when you're making a major transformation, preparing for a major pivot, you're going to head into this cocoon stage where you're alone. Caterpillar goes into this stage and it's dark,
Yeah.
it's alone, it's
Yeah.
hanging there, vulnerable.
Wow.
But to your point, the strong support is still there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hanging there. It's not really able to move or defend itself. It's dark. And
Wow.
I've actually done a spiritual thing about this because that's when God, shows up and carries you and holds you when it's
Yeah.
dark. But if you read about the transformation of a caterpillar to a butterfly, this is where the most rigorous, strenuous, ugly part of it happens. And from things you've done, from going through your journey right now, earning a PhD, there comes a time when it's just you. It's just you in that decision. It's just you walking into that room for that interview.
Yeah.
You could have had coaches and friends giving you fist bumps and cheering you on, but in everything we are, and I said earlier, we're not alone, but there is a moment in every journey where it's just you. And
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Are you going to hold on? Are you going to uh, die in there?
Yeah.
Because what happens is it's a miracle with the caterpillar. it completely transforms. It dies and completely becomes something else.
Wow.
And it is the most ugly, gruesome process.
Wow.
And then as it goes through the process, there's this thin layer that appears, and you start seeing what is to come. You start
Wow.
seeing the pattern of what are going to be wings. And then it starts working its way out. So for me, and some of this I'm going to share, you may not have known, as I moved up in higher ed, and I was in my second vice presidency where you and I both worked,
Mhm.
and people were starting to chatter to me about presidencies. You should be a president. I can see you being a president. Oh my God, you'd be a great president. Some version of that concept, even from a couple of mentors.
Yeah.
But I knew deep within that that wasn't the next step for me.
Yeah.
And so I had to go into a cocoon stage. I had
Mm.
to take this to God. This was like God and me.
Yeah.
And even when I seriously considered pursuing a presidency, because a mentor was really heavily encouraging me, well intentioned, just
Yeah.
like people well intentioned when I was a teenager saying, no, don't go into mass communication and journalism, well intentioned. I literally got sick. My body literally told me that
No.
this will take you off course. I was
Whoa.
sick for about 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
And so, again, in that cocoon, it's dark and it's gruesome. But I also had to realize that something had been off when. Okay, let me back up a little bit. So, my newest book, I dedicated it to Antoinette Kennedy Bailey. And some people will recognize that name, some will not. But in January 2024, she took her life.
Wow.
She was an African American female vice president for student affairs.
Whoa.
Okay.
Wow.
And something about that, and it allegedly was related to things she went through in the workplace.
Wow.
And at the times when I was most honest with myself, I was like, okay, yes, I've, I'm a vice president, but something's not quite right. And some of that not quite rightness is sometimes what happens for African American, I'm going to use my lens, African American females showing up in these executive spaces, not necessarily fully welcome.
Yeah.
And there, I used to use microaggressions. Now I just say aggressions. Some of the things that I went through, I'm sure are some of the things that she allegedly went through. And that was a turning point for me. And
Wow.
I was still in the cocoon because I was already starting to flirt with the idea of, I think it's time to make a change.
Yeah.
And honoring her memory by dedicating my book to her, I see it as giving voice to things that she is no longer able to be here to give voice to. And I also talk a lot about Harriet Tubman's journey because it's very communal and but brave, like that
Yeah.
extra ounce of courage. And so my biggest cocoon stage in my life, and there have been many, was the decision to exit higher education, to retire, full retirement. I thankfully had been around long enough to have full retirement, but to retire in
Yeah.
my 50s, my late 50s, but still my 50s, and to leap into something that I'd never been, which is now a full-time entrepreneur.
That was powerful. That was powerful. And I think sometimes we don't realize that staying somewhere too long or going after something, like it can literally make you ill. It
Yes.
could literally take you out of here.
Yeah.
This might be a sensitive topic and producer Joy will let me know if she approves or not. But when I think back, I took a lot of American and African American history courses when I got my divinity degree.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I always thought through was how so many people who were owners of slaves are kind of in that slave market, how they literally, the mental illness that they suffered through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the things that they held, because being in those type of positions where you are literally exercising a power or a position that you're not supposed to have, it
Yes.
can literally take you out of here.
Yes.
And it fit with the times. It fit the culture of the day, as wrong as it
Mm-hmm.
may have been, but it
Mm-hmm.
fit the culture of the day. It's what everyone else was doing. But
Yes.
you literally could not take it. And
Yes.
sometimes, as we are going through our own journeys and we're trying to do what everyone else is telling us to do because it's what they did and it's what we were taught, that we were supposed to continue going up the ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I mentor young professionals now, which I was mentored, so I pay it back. I pay it
Mm-hmm.
forward. When I
Mm-hmm.
mentor young professionals and I ask them what their end goal is, and they say, I want to be a college president. I'm like, okay. Some of them I completely that fits. Some of
Mm-hmm.
them, they don't know what else to dream for. And we were taught that the only way you can be important is to be at the top. But
Yes.
do you know the pressure? Do you have to be we are commissioned. We are built. We are manufactured for purpose.
Yes.
You are built for something in specific. And when I think about kind of your first act, you were absolutely built for that, but you were created. You were purposed for where you are now.
Yes.
And you have to there comes a point, you mentioned a turning point. There comes a point in your journey where you have to decide, am I going to do what makes sense, or am I going to do what's in me to do? It's literally in the caterpillar to become a butterfly. It might make sense to stay on the ground and you might be really good at groundwork, but it
Mm-hmm.
is in you to become a butterfly. And you
Absolutely.
and you have to know that. You have to know that. And I love that you dedicated your book to someone who endured that struggle so that we all could have that lesson.
Yes. Can I say something else about purpose? Because you
Please.
really made oh, I didn't want to interrupt your thought pattern, but you really are making me think about something else with purpose. So yes, we are built for a purpose,
Yeah,
an overarching purpose, because it can show up in many little other purposes that all are under the same umbrella.
for sure.
But our purpose, and I heard this, I can't even claim this. I heard this recently. Um, we are our purpose is not just for us.
Mhm.
So when we stay stuck in our caterpillar stage, when we stay stuck in fear, when we stay stuck in negativity and don't start heading into our purpose, we're missing what we're supposed to be doing, because there are people assigned to us,
Yeah.
or we are assigned to people. So when we give up, there are, let's say, 5 people, but it might be 500, might be 5,000. Now, I'm not saying this very well. The work that we were supposed to do, the impact that we were supposed to make on those 5 people is now denied to them
Yeah.
because we stayed stuck. So purpose is greater than serving us and getting a certain house or a certain car or just feeling centered and aligned. And all
Yeah.
those things are great and
Oh.
fine,
Mhm.
but it's bigger than us. We
Yeah.
are assigned to people who are waiting for us to get it together.
Yeah.
And we don't have the luxury or
Of
maybe
staying on
even
the
the
ground.
right of
Yeah.
just staying on the ground.
Oof. Yes.
What if
You don't
what
you
if
don't
what you
have the right.
no,
Yeah.
no. And it's like, and I heard it again, I wish I could say I thought of this, but I heard someone say it this way. It's almost an arrogance of assuming that God's going to give us another day.
Yeah.
I'll get around to it when I get over this fear or feel like it. But if you're put on this earth to do something and you know that you keep getting nudged like you're in a bumper car to stay in position for where he has you headed, it's tied to something greater. It's tied to other people. There might be something that you're about to do with your life, Jaquita, that is going to save the life of a single mom
Wow.
with 9 children. I just met
Yeah.
someone who has 9 children. Um, so um, it's we don't have the right to give up. We
Yeah.
don't have the right to. My life is not my own. First of
Yeah.
all, I don't have the right or the luxury of not walking in my purpose. And so
Yeah.
now I feel aligned. Yes, and it was time to leave higher ed and do what I'm doing, and I can still serve higher ed. I still work with higher ed in what I do now, but
Yeah.
it's through a whole different lens
Yeah.
that is very much on track with where I know God is taking me now. There might be places he's taking me that I'm not aware of yet, but when
Yeah.
I feel that pull, I have to go. I don't have the right to not go.
We, I feel like we have been taught to build kingdoms on the ground instead of looking up and figuring out where the next move is.
Yes.
And so we've been taught, take this ground and make it amazing
Yes.
instead of looking up and saying, well, maybe there's more. Maybe I have not yet become all that I'm supposed to be.
Right.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, I want to talk about retirement. Okay,
Okay.
I want to talk about the second act. All right, you were an amazing vice president. I was there to witness it. An
Thank you.
amazing college executive. There's literally no one where we work that did not like Dr. Knowles. Okay, she was our favorite in the administrative suite. Okay, I'll say it because I don't
Uh,
work there anymore. Uh, but an absolutely just amazing professional, an amazing career. And now we have pivoted to the second act, and we the middle adults we the middle adults want to know what does purpose look like in retirement?
ooh, purpose looks like freedom. Purpose tastes like freedom. And I mentioned Harriet Tubman. I literally do a presentation called Araminta Boss. She was born as Araminta Ross, but I renamed her Araminta
She's
Boss,
a
and
Ross.
she's a Ross.
How did I not know this?
Was a
Okay,
boss.
sorry,
Was a boss.
that's a
No,
little pin for
um,
me for later.
but it feels and tastes like freedom,
Wow.
and it is hard work. You can ask my husband. He'll come home from working, and I'm still in my office grinding and grinding and grinding, and I work just as many, if not more, hours than I did as a vice president. And those are some long hours,
My
but
lord.
it feels free. It feels natural. It feels scary at times. It feels hard at times, and that's good for me because it keeps me trying to figure it out. It keeps me seeking help. It keeps me wanting to be around people who have figured it out so that I can reach that next level. And it makes me, like Harriet Tubman, want to get into the position where I can go back and help other people. I have an opportunity by having retired from higher ed and stepped out of this cocoon, and I'm still on a branch. I got shaky legs, and because when you come out of the cocoon as a brand new butterfly, I've never been a butterfly before. I've never been a full-time
Mhm.
entrepreneur before. So
Wow.
it's a little
Yeah.
shaky, but I'm getting my wings. I'm kind of okay. So real quick
Get
detour.
in there.
When when the when what's now a butterfly comes out of the cocoon, I forgot the word for it, but if you think about this spiritually, there's something that is equivalent to what we as humans refer to as blood that pumps into the wings so that the
Wow.
butterfly can be prepared to fly. So
Wow.
that's you can preach that. I'll let you preach that.
I
um
think I won't.
so it's I'm still having to do things scared or tired, and but I feel hopeful. I feel clear about what I'm supposed to do next. I may not have clarity about what the big picture is, but I do have a vision board for or two for it. But yeah, the overall feeling is freedom to do what I need to do, want to do, the way I want to. I don't have to code switch. as an entrepreneur like I had to in the workplace. I had to.
Yeah.
I had to survive.
Yeah.
And but it was exhausting.
Yeah.
And so it is the freedom to see myself the way God sees me, and it's the freedom to use my voice,
Wow.
the freedom to think bigger and
Yeah.
not have to wait for someone else to hand an opportunity to me. When you work, okay, so you middle adulters, when you
Talk
work
to us.
for someone else, not saying everybody has to be an entrepreneur, but here's the reality. When you work for someone else, you have put yourself in a situation where someone else can turn off your career like walking in the room and hitting a light switch.
Wow.
So leaving higher ed where I worked for someone else, depended on someone else, worked for a system that was not necessarily defined for me or made for me. And now I have a sense of, I don't want to say control, but I have a sense of freedom. And that even means freedom to fail,
Yeah.
you know, and a deep sense of knowing that it's going to be okay. I don't
Yeah.
even know what that means. I don't know what that looks like, but it's okay to not know.
Yeah.
And so I know I keep saying the same thing over again, but it truly is freeing. And it's
Yeah.
not overnight. You know, I
Mhm.
described some of the process it took to even get to the point to be courageous enough. Like when you retire, you know, your income drops
Mm.
unless you have prepared for it to be at a level where it can literally remain the same and you feel no financial shift at all. But you know, I've part of my pivots, and it's in the book. I'm very open. You know me, I'm very honest.
Yeah.
I had foreclosure after my first divorce. I
Mm.
had more than $50,000 in credit card debt. I had a student loan. All that is zeroed out now.
Wow.
And I bought a new house, everything, no special interest rate, no. God just worked it out. So
Yeah.
he's done so much good that's why I choose not to complain and look at the bad, and I have the freedom to do that. So I would say to the middle adulters to wherever you are, just realize that you are going to have to take a risk, more than likely. You will have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to do it with your legs shaking. You will likely have to go into a cocoon where you are relying on yourself, which, you know, with my belief system, that means relying on God, but
Yeah.
not where someone's going to tell you everything you need to do or how you need to do it or help you do it. You
Yeah.
know, you have to be courageous enough to use that next 10% of courage that it takes to not freeze and
Yeah.
not give up. Um, you have to, I also will say to middle adulters, you know, you might have setbacks. You will likely have setbacks, but remember, it's a climb. So every time you're climbing, you're building muscles.
Yeah.
And some of the muscles you develop were from the last thing you did where you made it, where
Yeah.
you achieved it. And so remind yourself when you're ready for that next uh scary thing, big thing. And for some of you it might be a college president or a corporate CEO or something like that, and that's okay. But remind yourself of all the other successes you've experienced and
Mm.
use those muscles, and maybe even do it better than you did the last time you achieved something. And achievement becomes addictive. It's a
Yeah.
good feeling. And when you do it, just like we're assigned to people who are waiting for us to get it together, there's also people always watching us. And
Mm.
you've probably experienced that even now, Jaquita. And I've had people who've come back to me and told me I inspired them. I might not remember their name. I didn't know they were watching. I
Yeah.
wasn't doing things to be watched. And so you never know who you're helping by choosing to be courageous and to not be afraid. And for some of you, Middle adulthood is, I kind of wish not, I try not to be regretful, but you still have a lot of life left. You still, God willing, have a lot
So
of years
do
left.
you.
You can completely flip the script if you want to. I know I have a dear friend who I knew her from childhood. She went to college, became an engineer. In her middle adult years, she went back to school and became a physician.
Wow.
She's been a physician for years.
Wow.
And it wasn't easy to become an engineer, and a Black female engineer at that.
Yeah.
And so do big, scary stuff and
I
be
think
okay
that's,
with it.
I
Yeah.
have talked to so many middle adults who will tell me something like, I always wanted to be a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're a lot of them were working in higher ed because that's the world I'm
Mm-hmm.
in. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be a lawyer. Like that was my dream,
Mm-hmm.
but they're, in their 40s and they're like, they don't see how they can get there because now they have these full lives. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's so key what you said, that we are still, a lot of times we give the, try something new to the young adults. Like, oh, let,
Mm-hmm.
let the babies do it. We
Right,
middle
right.
adults. We're middle adults. But we still, what I hear you saying is there's still time. And even for you who had the opportunity to, retire, but not retire and like, just rest and I hope you're doing that. But, retire
Mm.
and still pursue. Okay, Dr. Knowles. Retire and pursue, and retire and still be in purpose and retire because there's something bigger and there's something greater, right?
Yes,
I think that like there is still time to reinvent. There is
always.
still time to go after the thing that when you were back there in childhood, you knew you were supposed to be in some sort
Mhm.
of communications role. You
Mhm.
knew you were supposed to be speaking to people. You knew you were supposed to be helping to navigate people through their journeys. You knew you were there. There's still time. And
Yes.
so I think I just really, really appreciate your message today because even me as a middle adult, I think about how I've navigated my own career, starting in the classroom and then moving into student affairs and student services, and then now being back in kind of this academic, more administrative space. And I feel like I'm at a place where I have a blank slate. And the message that you gave me today is the exact message of the podcast, right? That we have an opportunity to reflect back on where we've been so that we can redefine and rewrite what's next. And so if you are feeling like, as Dr. Knowles has beautifully delineated for us, if you are feeling like you are the butterfly, that you are the caterpillar that's been in the cocoon and you're getting ready to break forth, I want you to know that where you're going now, you're in a new atmosphere, you're in a new season, you're in a new time, and you have the opportunity to rewrite a narrative that can become your second act.
Absolutely.
I love it. Dr. Knowles, the
Agree.
people are going to want to know how to get in contact with you, how to get these books, how to get the coaching, how they can find out more about what you're doing. How do they get connected to you?
So the easiest way is to go to my website, which is matteelspeaks.com. That's Matteel speaks.com. From there, the very first thing I want you to do is to sign up for my free monthly newsletter. It is literally where once a month, first Sunday of every month, I send something out to just spark joy for you, to motivate you, to inspire you. I give you reflection questions that you can think about, journal prompts, all about transformation. So I've had some people who are like, "Oh, this was just on time," and I share from a real place and give examples and just try to be in that space of helping. You can also order my first book, the yellow one you see in the back. It's Your Time to Soar: 5 Steps to Transform Your Life. That's available in paperback and hardcover. I also have a workbook that is sort of set up like a journal for you to answer some of the questions that I have at the end of each chapter. It's kind of a working book to really take you through a process. And then I'm so excited that you can also get my new book, uh, Getting Out of Your Own Way: Self Sabotaging Habits in the Workplace. I'm really excited about this. And again, this is the one that I dedicate to Dr. Kendia Bailey, because this is where you get to learn from some of my mistakes, some of the mistakes from other people, some of the things I've observed by being a leader for so many years. And as middle adulters, you get to like work on getting it together now and not have to go through some of the things that we had to go through. It also comes also available as a workbook, and there's case studies in here that allow you to
Ooh.
really unpack all these. And there's like 31 self-sabotaging habits that I address in the book and the workbook. And Jaquita, as you mentioned earlier, I'm also in the process of developing an online course that will be self-guided, that you can do it at your own pace, to really help you do some self-reflection, acknowledge the things you're doing well, and really kind of set your career on a course that's not riddled with self-sabotaging habits. One that I was really guilty of for many, many years was ignoring when I was being ignored. And that's what the first chapter is about.
Wait
But
a minute. Okay. All right. I'll be getting my copy. So make sure you guys get yours. Okay, because that alone, okay, that's a key selling point right there.
thank you. It's that was
Ignoring
important for
when
me to
you're
like
being
open with that, because
ignored.
that
Ooh,
was that defined me for so long until I got it together. Also, I'm a coach. I'm a transformation coach. And so I'm not a life coach. A life coach is really about how do I want my life to look. As a
mm-hmm.
transformation coach, what I focus on is, all right, tell me your goal. Let's work on a goal, or really no more than three. I like to zoom in on one, and let's help you get there. I can
Wow.
either help you get it started and tell you what's needed for you to finish, or we can lock arms and go through it, and I can continue working with you together. And also, I'm a speaker. I love to get in front of groups and do workshops and really connect with you around a lot of the
Mm.
kind of things we talked about today. So, MatteelSpeaks.com is where you can find out about all those services, order books, and sign up for my free newsletter.
Yes, I love it. Dr. Knowles, thank you so much. I'm just so grateful that we got to hear your story of transformation and everything that you taught us today. It was amazing.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. This has been amazing, and it feels so aligned with my purpose to just be able to talk and unpack some of these things. And it's so critical. And again, not everybody's here to have the voice to do this, and so it's an honor, and it really sparks joy for me to be able to do so.
Yeah, I love it. Listen, friends, this is the end of the podcast. You do not have to stay stuck in intermission. Raise the curtain and walk into your second act. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.